Thank you so much for joining us for CBN News Watch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Ahead today, Israeli security forces are beefing up protection as tensions rise with terrorists. We've got the details. Plus,
a city divided, a once thriving neighborhood now facing extinction because of urban renewal.
It's pretty much a textbook example of exactly what they wanted to do.
Imagine living in that community and then it being transformed so that now you have liquor stores in your community or brothels in your community.
We'll take a closer look at what's being done in this community. Then later, we'll show you a new tool in the fight against heart disease.
About a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events and a 39% reduction in death from heart-related causes. Those are really big treatment effects.
All these stories and more, they're coming up next from the CBN Newsroom.
This is CBN News Watch.
I want to begin this half hour with security forces ramping up protection as Israel observes the High Holy Days. Police in Jerusalem are standing guard at every synagogue in the city. This year, terrorists have escalated their attacks against Israeli citizens, especially in the territory known as the West Bank. CBN's Julie Stahl reports now from Jerusalem on the rising tension.
This year, terrorists have already murdered 34 Israelis. Most of these attacks have taken place in the West Bank, which is biblical Judea and Samaria.
We are facing something like around 200 alerts every day for terrorism, the intelligence radar. We have witnessed over 200 trials of terror acts. And of course, the rate of fatalities is the highest in the last few years.
Reserve Major General Israel Ziv says those carrying out these attacks are mainly young people in their 20s. He adds, while they may not be part of organized terror groups like Hamas and Islamic Jihad, those groups are smuggling weapons, ammunition, and money into Palestinian areas.
This equipment finds itself to the hands of those youngsters, and by the internet, they find all the instructions how to carry terror attack on vehicles or on the settlements or all kinds of options that they have. And it's up to their decision, to take the act.
Ziv says this often makes it harder for Israel to track planned attacks. Adding to this chaos is the growing weakness of the governing Palestinian Authority.
We see that they are more busy within themselves. Most of them are corrupted. They are dealing with personal businesses and personal issues, and they are not running cities and the situation in the streets.
While Israel mounted a major military offensive in July, Jewish community leaders in Judea and Samaria are calling on their government to take tougher action.
There's a relationship here as if each terror attack is a one-time event. They're relating to terror like there's an attack and then another attack and then another. It's simply not right. We have a full war here. What we have is a real threat. And we came here to say to our government that we demand to go to war. We want to win this war.
We demand that the government of Israel takes action against these terrorists like the U.S. and Britain would take action against terrorists that are firing rockets and shooting at women and children that travel on the roads.
Many attacks are happening along Route 60, known as the Way of the Biblical Patriarchs, traveled by Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Many of the Jewish settlements, which much of the world considers illegal, are established there today.
We're building on the land that's ours. We aren't confiscating land. We're building in places that we bought or that belong to the country. We're doing it according to the law.
Council leader Shlomo Ne'eman questions how foreign governments can try to stop Jews from building houses in biblical Judea.
This thing has also given a tailwind to terror, and it backs up the Palestinian Authority.
Council leader Israel Gantz calls on the international community to shift its focus to helping fight the terrorism.
We must fight with the terror, and we want to thank for our friends for the world that support the fighting in the terror, because we all know the terror can start here and grow for all over the world.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
And you can see more news from the Middle East on Jerusalem Dateline on the CBN News Channel. You can find it tonight at 8:30 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Infighting continues between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and conservative members of his party. They need to agree on a spending bill to keep the government running, but the 2024 defense funding is causing division. Caitlin Burke has more.
For a second time this week, a faction of Republicans blocked the defense bill from advancing through to debate. While this measure is considered one of the most conservative in history, House GOP leadership has struggled to find the votes to advance it. Earlier this week, 5 Republican congressmen joined Democrats to block the bill from consideration, and Thursday that number rose to 6. The opposition infuriating their peers who are also veterans.
How does this look on the world stage when we can't even, as a country, as a Congress, pass a defense budget? Where do our priorities lie?
Virginia Congresswoman Jen Kiggins is one of many members in her family with military service. She also represents one of the country's largest active duty military populations. Kiggins tells CBN News the people in her district are concerned by what they're seeing on the Hill.
They are my friends. They are my neighbors. They're already struggling with some of the economic challenges. We've got inflation that's still record-breaking. They're still having trouble not only paying regular bills, but if you wanted to buy a new home or a new car, we're seeing interest rates that are higher than ever. Our military lives on fixed incomes. My veterans live on fixed incomes.
The major issue centers around the debt ceiling deal struck in late May between House Speaker Kevin McCarthy and President Biden. In it, the administration agreed to a spending cap. But according to Dakota Wood of the Heritage Foundation, the White House has increasingly requested more money.
So there are those in the Freedom Caucus and in other parts of the Republican Party says, well, wait a minute. If you're going to try to increase spending, in violation of this earlier agreement that we didn't necessarily agree with, but we, went ahead and went along with, then we're going to show again our disagreement by being very much opposed to the current budget negotiations going into the fiscal year.
While Kiggins agrees government spending is out of control, she does not believe the military and national security should be used as leverage.
I understand those frustrations of wanting to cut the top line number down to fiscal year 22 levels and perhaps even lower. But military and defense spending is not the place to be cutting right now, especially with what's going on in the world.
As McCarthy struggles to unite House Republicans, Senate Democrats warn the House spending bill will be dead on arrival, making a government shutdown an even greater possibility. Caitlin Burke, CBN News, Washington.
The Biden administration is providing $600 million in funding to produce new at-home COVID-19 tests and restarting the website which allows Americans to again order up to 4 tests per household. The administration says it is aiming to prevent possible shortages during a rise in COVID cases, which usually comes during the colder months. Orders can be placed at covidtest.gov beginning this Monday, that is September 25th. 1 in 7 Christians worldwide now face persecution. That is the stunning headline out of a new report from the World Relief and Open Doors USA. According to the report titled Closed Doors, 360 million Christians face high levels of persecution and discrimination. More than 5,500 Christians were killed for their faith this year alone, while many others were arrested and imprisoned around the world. Coming up, homes, shops, and churches ruined. See how communities like this one are facing extinction, all in the name of urban renewal. We're going to have this story for you when we come back. $5,800 shops and 40 churches all torn down in the name of urban renewal. John Jessup traveled to St. Louis to highlight how a once thriving neighborhood is facing extinction.
The typical Saturday morning sights and sounds of Soulard Market, a St. Louis neighborhood attraction serving a hearty mix of art, culture, and Midwestern appeal. St. Louis, with its picturesque, one-of-a-kind skyline, was once deemed a forerunner in city planning. Some now believe the legacy of urban renewal is at least partly responsible for some of the city's current problems. A short drive through downtown, and you begin to see the divided city as shown in this BBC report.
You got $1 million opportunity here. You have no economic opportunity here.
100 years ago, people saw a place of opportunity, first drawing European immigrants, then Black Southerners seeking work and education in the Great Migration. Many settled in a neighborhood called Mill Creek Valley. So describe the type of people who lived here.
We had our teachers, our doctors, our lawyers, grocery stores, business people. Your school teacher may have gone to your church.
Vivian Gibson wrote a book about her carefree childhood here, memories now overshadowed by vacant lots like these and construction sites eerily similar to the 1960s when the community was razed, bulldozed by what neighbors called the headache ball.
Because it made so much noise. So we would sit there and watch this big machine on a crane toss this real big, heavy ball and knock the house down.
It's pretty much a textbook example of exactly what they wanted to do.
Nathan Jackson gives walking tours of the city and compares the stately homes and streets in nearby Soulard and Lafayette Square to Mill Creek before city leaders tore it down.
He doesn't get quite the same lens cast on him as Robert Moses, but Harlan Bartholomew arguably did equal amounts of damage, if not more.
As the country's first full-time city planner, Harlan Bartholomew spent nearly 40 years retooling St. Louis, advocating for slum clearance and highways that spurred white flight and urban decay.
Harlan Bartholomew is extremely interesting because of the influence he had on almost every city in the United States.
Experts say he used zoning laws to target poor and predominantly black areas like Mill Creek.
And imagine living in that community and then it being transformed so that now you have liquor stores in your community or brothels in your community. And that meant disinvestment.
Vivian's book paints a picture far from what the city called blighted.
But to me, it seems counter to the description of the area when they were listing it as blighted. They called it slums. It doesn't sound like that.
Well, that was important to be able to tear it down. Voters had to vote on a bond issue. And it's a lot easier to tear down a slum than it is to tear down a community of 20,000 working people.
The decision erased 5,000 homes, 800 shops, and 40 churches, forcing 20,000 people like Vivian and Lois's families to search for new homes. They had few options, however, due to housing covenants limiting where blacks could live.
So finding a place to relocate with 8 children that they, one, could afford and that they felt was going to be safe and nurturing for us was quite a challenge.
Using data focused on black movement and growth, Bartholomew repeated this pattern in designs for more than 500 cities and counties.
Right here, he called for large urban expressways going through the downtown areas. And in this case, he built one 18 blocks straight through the black community.
Richmond is just one of the hundreds of cities where Bartholomew laid out his plans, which often included the destruction of homes, businesses, and churches. 6 Mount Zion Baptist Church was supposed to be removed in the 1950s to make way for a nearby highway. Founded more than 200 years ago, the church is still standing in this historic black Richmond neighborhood.
Reverend Ben Campbell, author of Richmond's Unhealed History, tells CBN News it survived because of one attentive city employee.
The black woman who was an elevator operator in City Hall and a member of 6 Mount Zion Church, as she ran that elevator up and down every day and listened to the city planners talk about what they were going to do with the expressway. She informed the congregation, and the black community's only victory in this entire project was to get this road moved 10 feet in this direction so that 6 Mount Zion Church would not be torn down.
So all of this is Mill Creek.
Back in St. Louis, we drove to the lone church left standing in Vivian's old neighborhood. While many blacks are leaving to seek opportunity elsewhere, the children of Mill Creek, now seasoned seniors, say they're staying to safeguard their stories.
If everybody leaves, who then does the work? Where even is the hope that change could occur? So I'm here for the long haul. both in St. Louis and both here at the Griot.
Beyond the walls of the museum Lois created to preserve the city's Black history, doors are beginning to open to change.
Every place has a history, and this is part of ours.
Last February, the city's new soccer team, located in what was the Mill Creek Valley, hosted a dedication, giving surviving residents the first look at a new memorial capturing their quotes and cherished memories, now on display for all to see.
And so I feel like we've snatched it back from just disappearing completely.
Progress looks different depending on perspective, and here in St. Louis, some are making a concerted effort to redefine what it means by embracing the past. And that includes this Pillars of the Valley monument, which stands as a memorial to remember and honor a painful chapter in the city's history, and to start conversations about how to avoid similar mistakes to pave a brighter and stronger future for everyone. John Jessup, St. Louis, Missouri, CBN News.
Still ahead, see the new tool that can help fight against heart disease. Stay with us. You're watching the CBN News Watch. Heart disease remains America's #1 cause of death, claiming 1 out of every 5 lives lost. But doctors say many of these deaths are preventable if we make certain changes to our lifestyles. CBN medical reporter Lori Johnson shows us a new tool in the fight against heart disease.
More than 200 million people worldwide take a statin drug because of its ability to significantly lower LDL, or so-called bad cholesterol. But up to 29% of statin users complain of side effects. Muscle symptoms like pain, weakness, and cramps are by far the most common, but others include stomach problems and fatigue. Patients who experience side effects often stop using statins, but now there are pharmaceutical alternatives for people who would like to take a drug to help lower bad cholesterol but don't want to take a statin. A new study shows bempedoic acid is effective and without the drawbacks some experience with statins. The Cleveland Clinic led a study involving 14,000 statin-intolerant patients, and the group that took bempedoic acid experienced significant benefits compared to the group that took a fake pill.
About a 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events and a 39% reduction in death from heart-related causes. Those are really big treatment effects. There were no more muscle-related difficulties with bempedoic acid than there were with the placebo treatment that half of the patients received.
Bempedoic acid did, however, raise a few red flags.
There were some side effects, including increased cost, but also some patients were more likely to develop gout and gallstones. But this is why it's important to talk to doctors about risk and benefits, not only with this drug, but with any medication.
In addition to bempedoic acid, doctors can prescribe a number of other non-statin cholesterol-lowering drugs.
Yeah, so one would be ezetimibe, which is a pill that you take and decreases cholesterol absorption in the gut. There are other injectable medicines that you can take that lower cholesterol by inhibiting something in the liver called PCSK9. And there's 3 different medications that really address that.
Recently, the American Heart Association announced the top 8 ways to achieve good cardiovascular health, like eating right, exercising, getting enough sleep, and keeping blood pressure in check.
Really, probably the biggest risk factor for heart disease in this era is still smoking. So quitting smoking is far and away the single most important thing a person can do. Fortunately, I think most people know that's the right thing to do and are either working on it or have done it or have never started smoking. So after that, the next biggest factor we pay attention to is cholesterol levels. High cholesterol is one of the real drivers for heart disease.
In addition to statins and statin alternative pharmaceuticals, some doctors recommend natural products to help lower cholesterol, like oatmeal, niacin, and red yeast rice extract. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
Stay with us. We got your Friday Faithful coming up next.
Download the CBN News App, 24/7 news from a Christian perspective at home or on the road. One place for all of your news. Breaking news alerts. Set daily prayer goals and pray for news stories. Read the most important news and watch CBN News Channel live. CBN News, because truth matters. Go to cbnnewsapp.com to get the app today.
Time now for your Friday Faithful, and today I want to leave you with this thought as we conclude another week together. They're lyrics from a song I recall from my childhood. There is no failure in God. He will hear you when you call, catch you when you fall. Just have faith. He will be right there. With that word, I encourage you to make today a fabulous Friday and do yourself a favor. Have a wonderful weekend on purpose and in purpose. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN News Watch. I want to remind you, you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us at the address on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. Goodbye. God bless.